This is part 2 of creating a user and authenticating using Firebase. In this video, we'll be creating and setting up the Firebase and connecting it to our app. So the first thing that you want to do is get a project created by adding a project in your Firebase homepage. I'm going to use a project that I already have created, but creating a project is really easy. Once you have that project created, you will be on the dashboard for that particular project. And there are some settings that we'll be getting into, and then the database is actually where the Firestore would be set up. So if you do not have a database already set up in here, initially it's going to ask you to create a new database, and those steps are pretty quick and easy to just go through. And once you have that database set up, your screen should look like this in this section. So I'm going to the documentation, and the documentation is on the right hand side, and then I'm going to select on app. And this is going to bring me to how to get Firebase set up inside of our projects. So we already got the initial project set up here, and now here are some scripts that we would need to reference Firebase. So since we're using Node, we already have the package installed. Here we would just require the Firebase app along with authentication and Firestore. So I'm going to copy this over and paste that inside the Firebase file. So I'm actually going to change the var into const. And of course, so we're just going to be getting Firebase, and since Firebase is a big package, we only want the authentication and the Firestore service from it. So we're just going to just call on those things only. So if I go back to the documentation, the next thing I need to do is initialize Firebase with my configuration. So this means I need to get my API information and store that as an object. So I'm just going to grab this section of code here, and I'm going to paste this as well. And inside of here is where my API information would go. So I want to go ahead and get the values for the Firebase settings that I need. So inside the project, under settings, project settings, at the bottom is where our API keys and all our information will be at. So just depending on how you set up the project, you can just do the cdn or the config. I am just going to get the values because I already kind of have the object there from the documentation. So I'm just getting the values out. I'm copying them. And then I'm just going to paste that into my Firebase config there. Now, if you don't have that set up already, you just need to add app and then do web and have it generate this information for you. So back in the project, this Firebase initializes, so when a user signs in, it knows that it's talking to this project right here. So I want to go and update just the var and change that to const. And I do want to mention that if you are deploying this project, live, you don't want to store this on the front end of your project. You would want to hide these values. So usually using a .env file, you can store these values and reference it through there. but React actually allows you to, they have their own .env built in as long as you name the variables a certain way. So I'll show you how to set that up. So I want to go outside of the source into the root of the project and create a .env file. And I have this file saved from a different project, but I'm going to just show you what we're going to do. So just to show you, as you can see, this string is the same as this string. So pretty much what we want to do is assign these strings to new variables that we are going to create in our .env file. So what you would want to do is, since API key is named that, you pretty much want to keep the variables the same name just so there's less confusion on what's referencing what. So for example, API key, and then here I have it listed as API key. Now in order for the app to read these strings, you want to have React _ app in front of whatever name it is that you're going to name it. It does have to say React _ app before it, otherwise it's not going to work. Now if you weren't doing it this way, then naming it React _ app first, you don't have to do that. But using React.env file, you do need to have it named like this. So there's no strings or nothing like that, just the data matches that value. So in order for us to reference the value for what the API key would be coming from the .env file, we just need to call it. So instead of it being a string, what you would write would be process.env and then the name of whatever this value is associated to. So you'd say React _ app, and then it's API key. And then you would do the same for the other ones. So the other ones are named React _ app, domain, database, project, so on and so forth. So they'll all say React app _ and then with that, whatever name is associated to that. So whatever name I had set up in here, that's how it will find, what value matches that. So once that's set up here, then in our .getignore file, we need to make sure that that is also listed. So we would just say .env to add that, so when we push to our repo or production, that file is not included exposing our credentials, because we don't want those exposed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and fix all of these to be like this, and we'll move forward. So the rest of my values are updated where they're referencing the credentials that are stored in that .env file. So now I'm just going to store my auth and my Firestore methods that we can use from Firebase as variables. So I'm just going to say export const auth, and that's going to be equal to firebase.auth. And that's pointing to this right here. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the Firestore. And that's referencing that, and that's just going to make our lines of code shorter, but you don't have to do it this way. You can just call the full thing in other files. And then what I'm also going to do is just make sure that we are exporting out Firebase altogether. So I'm going to say export default Firebase. So now we have this Firebase all set up. So what I'll be doing next is setting up the login form to make sure that that's working so we can log in a new user, and then we can also sign in with Google. So either logging in a new user and signing in with Google should save that user into the database and then sign us in to the app.